Hi, welcome everybody to the January 8th edition of the Intuit Developer Friday Morning Hangout. I'm your host, David Leary. I am a Senior Developer Evangelist at Intuit. My Twitter handle is @David Leary. Today's special guest, we have William Lorfing. He's on the Developer Relations team. He does a lot of support. He's possibly our resident expert for the QuickBooks Desktop XML SDK, which will be our topic today. I'll give other people a chance to join the Hangout, and while they're joining, I'm just going to flip over to my camera and turn off my screen sharing. Hello, everybody. Next week, the topic is going to be about IAF files and why they're bad without a tool to import them in with to quality check them. So next week will be IAF files, and the week after that, I think we're going to do an on-location one, maybe possibly from the University of Arizona. We are sponsoring the Hack Arizona Hackathon, which is a college student hackathon. I think they have about 1,200 attendees, and we're going to possibly do one live that Friday morning from the campus, depending on the weather, et cetera, and internet connections. But that might be the plan for the week after that. So right now, I'm going to go ahead and hand off to William. And William, if you want to introduce yourself, chat a little bit, then we can jump into questions after you go through whatever you need to kind of present. Any of you that want to join, the URL is listed in the actual Hangout page that you clicked on if you came in from Twitter or some other location. If you want to not join and just kind of experience as a viewer, you can still ask questions. I'll open up the Q&A panel, and you can still ask questions along the way if you'd like. With that said, William, go ahead and jump in, and I'll go on mute.
Okay, cool. So, hi, I'm William Lorfing. I would say I'm in the beautiful state of Texas, but a couple hours ago it was nice, pretty and sunny, but right now we have fog, so it shows how much the weather can change. Wait 5 minutes and get something different. So, anyways, let me go ahead and do a screen share if I can get this to work correctly. Just so you can, let's come back, page up. There we go. So I've been with Intuit a little over 6 years. About 6 months of that was as a contractor doing the revving of the SDK version 8. So come a long way since that time. We're up and I handle pretty much anything under the sun for developer in the developer relations group. Got the QuickBooks Desktop, QuickBooks Purchase Service, and financial data services. I also work on that piece of it. Probably at some point you submit a ticket, I've possibly worked it. I hold a Bachelor of Science degree in computer science from University of Texas in Austin, and mainly had a background in software development, and then moved over to network and system administration work. And when I came to Intuit, I moved back into the software area. Some kind of fun facts. I am in Texas, and as a side, hobby, whatever you might want to call it, shoot professional fireworks in the area. So those that have been doing that since about 1990. So been doing that for a while.
So it sounds like you've been doing fireworks longer than software.
Pretty close. I was at UT, studying at UT about the same time I was doing that. So during the summers, I'd be working on that.
Got it. Cool.
So some kind of things I was trying to go through about the QuickBooks XML SDK is it's been around since about 2003. I think that's about it. Might have been 2002. Not sure exact date. But based upon the numbering and stuff like that, it should have been around there. We're currently up to version 13 of the SDK. I know we haven't released one in a couple of years now. I suspect we'll probably be releasing one this next year, mainly because of signing of the certificate, signing of the SDK itself. Microsoft has announced that they're getting rid of the SHA-1 certificates, and that's how we've got the SDK signed. So more than likely it'll be updated. I don't know if there are going to be any changes or anything like that, but that's probably going to be kind of on the horizon in the next year or so. Some things that we've made changes to is the not for resale. It's now available to everyone. If you go to the NFR page, it's going to give you the 800 number. go ahead and select option number 3, and they'll be able to get you set up with whatever version of 2013 and newer QuickBooks Desktop you need. As part of the SDK, we've got sample programs and files included, so gives you an idea of what to start with. They're older. We'll admit that up front. They're a little bit dated on some of it, so it's using VB6 and some of the older programs. So some of them will need to be updated if you try to use them, but the executable should run once you start using them. So some useful tools. We now have the on-screen reference guide. We actually have a shortcut, Intuit.me, QBXML OSR. I was able to get that this morning. And I'll go through and show some of these. One of the things that I use for testing all the time against a desktop is SDK Test Plus 3. It's included in the SDK. Basically, you can just select the QBXML request you want to use, submit it to QuickBooks, you get a response back. Makes it very simple and easy to test your requests. As part of that, if you run into issues though with the request, it gets rejected, there's a validator program included with the SDK, and that will validate your request, make sure you got it in the proper order and things like that. There are a couple of troubleshooting links in the live communities. If you look for troubleshooting or could not start, those will get you to different ones. There are a lot of tips and tricks, logging, how to enable logging for the SDK, and for QuickBooks Web Connector. Let's see.
I'm trying to get these links shared out, William, as you're going along.
Oh, okay.
Trying to the showcase so that way people can see, also pull these up themselves or see these. So I got the NFR one. Could you go back one page for me and I'll get the other ones up?
Let's see if I can do this. Nope.
Oh, we just lost it.
Did you?
Oh, that's the one there. Intuit.me QBXML OSR. Let me try to. Okay.
That, or I'll paste them in a few minutes.
You'll paste them to Intuit.me.
Thank you, Jack, for that clarification. It's 2002 was the original start date. So, like I said, it's been around for a while, and you got the links, David, or?
Yeah, I didn't get the FAQ ones, but I got the two top ones.
Actually, let's see what I can. My screen went blank for a second there, but that's fine.
Yeah, so I'm getting these shared in. All right. So those are now appearing in the showcase.
Okay, and not sure if the chat works, but there are the links for you, David.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Oh, and I guess the other important link is the QuickBooks itself.
I put the NFR one up already.
Okay.
I was going to link to the actual, the actual page on the developer site. Perfect.
All right. Mentioned QuickBooks Web Connector. It's mainly used for connecting QuickBooks desktops to a website. This will allow you to transfer data back and forth. The way I see it, it's just basic tunnel. You've got the server side that handles a piece of it. It does it builds up your queue of what needs to happen. QuickBooks on the client side will connect up to the server, ask for what needs to be done in the queue. Stuff gets passed through that tunnel back and forth, and desktop will process the request as they come through. So I see it as just kind of a basic tunnel. It's kind of the way to make it a little bit more of, or what kind of request do you send and how does it work. The Web Connector is a SOAP-based product, so there is a open source PHP library Keith Palmer has on his Consolibyte website. if you ever need something like that, that's available too.
I'll try to search for that while you're continuing on and find that.
And then just some basic links that David probably has in there. Then add Intuit Dev and add Intuit Apps, and then developer site, and then for status updates for the site in general, status.developer.intuit.com. And so that was my spiel, at least for that part of it. So let me go. Let's see if I can do this. Screen share, took that off. That's what I wanted to share. So just a couple of tools. The SDK Test Plus 3 allows you to company file if you want to. You have a request file. So let me just, let's just do an account query.
William, you're not sharing.
Am I not?
Yeah, something went wrong on the
Okay, hold on.
screens.
Let's try it again.
And while you're doing that, if any of you are watching, if you're doing the YouTube type experience, if you have a question, please use the Q&A panel. I do have it split open, so feel free to jump in and ask questions. And then Matthew and Jack, you guys are attending in person. If you guys have a question, just feel free to jump in.
Yeah, this is Jack. I was seeing his William's screen.
Okay, is it back again?
Yeah, I see that screen right now.
Okay.
Yep.
1 second. As I have a little coughing fit there. So anyways, as part of the SDK, the SDK Test Plus 3, you open connection. I actually have QuickBooks running in the background right now, so that's the reason we're not seeing part of it. You just do begin session like you normally do with the program. We're going to send it. Usually I'll do an end and close, that way in case I accidentally exit out of here, it doesn't mess something up. And let's see, and so let's try to view my output now. You know, it'd be really nice if they would share the full screen. No, you're not going to share the full screen. Let's go. I know you're here. Where'd it go? Oh, there it is, Explorer. So as you can see from the output, it's just giving you the all the information that it can get. And so it just makes it simple for being able to test requests and stuff like that. Just in doing general testing, I mean, I've built up a bunch of basic XMLs over time of company queries, account queries, invoice queries. So it makes it a little bit easier if we're going through and debugging stuff. Let's see what else we have. The validator. Let's see if I can get over it now. There it is. So the validator does basically the same thing. So we're going to browse for a file. Let's see, so basically it's to do you run validate against it. Not really fun, but let's drag this over. Let me go open up a file. So this was the account query that I just sent in, but let's just throw in a bad character in here just for fun. Oh, now I gotta go. No, then I'm gonna run back over to the validator, start screen sharing. Oh, did I not save it? Did I not pull the right one? Well, it says it's valid. Shouldn't be valid.
And so, William, I would be using this to validate an XML file maybe my app would be producing?
Correct.
Got it. And so it's really just, before I try to import it into QuickBooks, it's really checking it for the business logic.
Right.
Here and make sure it's all formatted correctly. Gotcha.
Well, it's still saying it's valid. That's not possible. Oh, there we go. So basically it's come down, and so I made a change to throw in that's ASDQ or ASDP before the request, and so it told me line 5, position 41, which is going to tell you exactly where there's a problem or what in general needs to happen. So that's kind of makes it easier, especially if you're not doing something correctly. You can go figure out what is wrong. And there you go. And so I just flipped that back and it showed up valid. So that's kind of something that will happen with the validator.
Got it.
And let's see what else did I want to show. Let me go over to Firefox. Let's start that up. So the
walk through the site and where the tools are, the SDKs, and kind of, because I know there's a lot of downloads when you do the desktop, right? You gotta.
Right. So we've got the QuickBooks Desktop has its own little spot on the site. And included, we've got documentation that's online. It has the manuals, link to the on-screen reference guide, sample codes, third-party tools. This links to other things that developers have written.
Is there a difference between the manuals and the on-screen reference?
There is. So manuals will be actual developers guides and things like that that are going to tell you what to look for. That's going to take a few seconds to load here. Of course, I picked the biggest one. So while that's loading, the on-screen reference guide is basically you use a shortcut for, or it gives you all the different requests that are available through the site or through the QBXML. So if we go look at, let's pick one that's common, do an invoice add. Come on. It's going to give you a listing of all the fields that are available through it. You also have the option for whether you're going to be using the QBFC, which is a foundation class modules to program, or if you're using the straight QBXML, you can just flip over to it and it gives you the values there. They're the same except for adding the little identifiers that the foundation class does. So you've got the request.
And then so the on-screen reference, it's going to give me code samples in the languages I may or may not need, and versus the manual, which is really just going to be more high level of like, you can make this request, you can make this request.
Correct. Right. It's more high level, or I wouldn't say actually high level. It's more detailed about what the requests are and the order that they have to be in, the request and the fields have to be in. So that's going to be the trick, is to make sure that if you submit a request that you do put it in the proper order, otherwise it will error off on you.
Okay, so you kind of need to use both products. You need the manual, but you also need the on-screen reference. Like you can just jump in the on-screen reference and expect everything to magically work or get through with that. Gotcha.
Right, so you've got request responses, and then you've got a general, the QBXML request itself is going to have the request at the beginning of it, and then once you get down towards the bottom, it has what the response is. But this is what the whole QBXML could look like if you've got every field filled in, stuff like that. And it lists what fields are available. If something's not listed here, then more than likely it's not going to be pulled in through the SDK. We also have some C# and VB.NET examples. The samples don't run, but they're kind of showing what the different values are available and what would be required. It's going to do a generic create an invoice, and then it'll walk you through pulling in the results. But it wants to, this kind of gives you an idea of what is needed to complete the request.
Got it.
And let's see, so if we come back over here to our programmer's guide, which is the part of the documentation we're originally asking about, this is 600 pages of docs on the SDK. So it's going to give you everything from beginning, how to start it, all the way through of distributing your application, how to create queries, generating reports, and things like that. So I mean, it's fairly extensive on what it does.
Oh, and this is just a standard PDF then too. Got it.
Right.
Check that. Perfect. Saw that. And then what else was available on that main download page?
So we had manuals. Let's go back. Oops. So it's documentation. You had the manuals, the on-screen reference guide, and then sample codes. The sample codes are actually going to take you to a GitHub site for pulling down the code if you need it.
Okay.
All that, though, is included in the SDK whenever you install it locally. So that's already there. To get the SDK, you just do download SDK, and you've got the SDK installer here. It's about 76 meg for the file itself, and then it'll extract out more details. Some developers are using older foundation class libraries. Those are also available on the site as well. You've got the merge modules and installers. I know that this is more devoted towards the desktop, but we also have the point of sale, and there's a SDK for it, as long as a couple of add-on kits, but those are only for the 9.0 and 10.0 point of sale versions.
QuickBooks Desktop point of sale. Got it.
Right.
Got it.
However, the SDK installer, even though it's 3.0, it still will work with the new 12.0 release of the point of sale. So that's all available in the download section.
Got it. I think let's pause and see if anybody has any questions. Again, if you're experiencing this through the YouTube type interface, I do have the questions and panel, the Q&A panel open, so you feel free to ask questions in that panel if you'd like to. I do see, obviously, Jack was here and Matthew Steebles is here, and now David just showed up, also another David. So if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and fire away.
Hi, this is Jack from ATEX. We use the foundation class for just about everything we do, and I guess we have 4 or 5 products that we've been marketing for the past 10 years or so, and we started back in 2002. But I was concerned about what you said about the new SDK and the SHA Authenticode. Does that mean that we have to change all our code to the new SDK? What does that really mean?
That's a good question, and I don't know. From what I've been able to read from the bulletin that came actually from Symantec that referred to Microsoft's notice that they are going to stop Windows 7 and newer will stop the loading of anything that's signed with a SHA-1 certificate. Now, I'm not sure if that's going to be how that will work. If they're going to just completely stop it or give error messages.
I can jump in there a little bit.
Sure.
It's to do with, when you run the SDK installer and it verifies that the installer has been provided by Intuit, it just means that they won't be offering that verification anymore. As far as Windows is concerned, it's the same as if the installer was unsigned. So you should. It won't affect any customer points unless you are redistributing the SDK as well. Because for the most part, you won't be signing your app with the certificate. It's only the installer, I think, that needs to be reissued. That's my understanding of it anyway, because we've had to do similar things with our installers.
Okay, thanks, Matthew. And that's a thing I don't know. I just that came out last week while we were on vacation. At least I've passed that along, and so that's something we're going to need to look at. I know that that's at the end of the year that's going to happen, or basically 2017. But it's something that we need to look at and be aware of that it is coming. And not sure if, at least from what I was reading, is it almost sounded like they're not going to allow the executable to even install at all, is what I was reading if it is signed. Now that could be wrong.
I haven't heard that, and I'm hoping that isn't the case. But you never know with these things.
Exactly, and so that's, and I'm not even sure how we're going to be able to test part of that. And it might be we're going to just have to dig some more, try to do some signing of using the old SHA and see what happens.
Yeah. If you could post any links you have for that so we can start our research, that would be good.
Yeah, I'll try to find that in a little bit.
Yeah, if you put that in the chat, William, I will definitely put it in the featured links.
Yeah, I'll have to go dig it up and see, because it came in an email to me, so I'm going to have to see if there's a link to that document and stuff like that.
For sure. Okay.
Yeah, I have a second question.
Sure.
When the new SDK comes out, hopefully at the end of this year or so, will it be more current with what QuickBooks actually has in it?
And that I don't know. I don't know if there are going to be any kind of new features added to it or not. One of the things that we did find that happened the last couple of releases is that we enabled some of the features, but in the SDK spec, but they were never implemented in QuickBooks. And for the next release, the goal is, if we're going to introduce a new feature or something like that in the SDK itself, is that it has to be working when the spec changes, and not do like we did the last couple of years where that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So,
a little disclaimer you put in the release notes always send me for a whirl, not knowing we should code this stuff or wait for some type of announcement that it's being supported. That never came. So yeah, that would be very nice.
right. So if something happens, that would be the key, is that it does have to be supported in QuickBooks before it gets added. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have one other.
Okay.
One of the issues that I constantly get confused on is the handling of special characters going through the foundation class to the XML to QuickBooks, and how do you really handle that? You know what I mean? Like you have special control characters that XML won't allow. You have to put the percent sign and the hex code and whatnot, and it's never really clear on how those special characters should be handled.
Yeah, and that's a hard one, because the foundation class doesn't have the ability to do it encoding in the request, and that's one thing that it does lack, is that option. So about the only way to do it is either go create the XML, go in and modify it before create the XML using the foundation class. You have to export it out and then add the encoding to it, and then take what you modified and send it back in. It's about the only way to do it with the foundation class. With the XML, you just need to add the encoding parameter and at least handle stuff, handle it correctly.
Okay. Thank you.
And Matthew?
You found the technical.
Yeah, Matthew. I'm going to post that link, Matthew. But as I'm posting it, can you kind of speak to what you found, and I'll.
Yep. Basically, this is the it's Microsoft's requirements document for what you need to sign your executables, whether they're installers or apps or whatever else. So the full page has got kind of which kind of certificates you need. There's which algorithms are supported for signing, and then there's a note kind of well hidden in it, which I've now lost since. But if you just do a search for SHA1, it's saying that Windows will stop trusting the certificates on the 1st of January 2017, which means that any certificates issued will need to be replaced with an SHA2 equivalent by then. But there's a note in there that says they will not require them to replace the certificates, but they'll no longer be treated as trusted. So in other words, you will still be able to run apps that are signed with SHA1, but they won't come up with a verified publisher.
Okay. That's the part I hadn't been able to dig into, but that's actually at least a little bit better news.
Yeah.
Thanks for surfacing that up, Matthew. It's a big help.
Yeah.
That's all right.
So that's anyway the downloads. Let me jump over. There's a on the live community, Intuit developer.lc.intuit.com. We've got external developers, internal developers that post questions, answer questions, stuff like that on there. In there, I've got a troubleshooting tips guides. The biggest one that a lot of people skip over is step 0 is read the docs. So it just walks through the different pieces. Unfortunately, down towards the bottom, probably should reorder this a little bit. It has how to enable verbose logging for the SDK. A lot of times I'll ask for this just so I can see what QBXML request is coming in. And so it's fairly simple. You add these to the SDK.ini file, restart QuickBooks, run your program. And then the log file will continuously grow. It's needed, then to stop that, you just change the level and the unlimited size and dump data request. A lot of times that does help in just general debugging of the SDK or your program, because it will give more details about what errors are happening or why something's not working correctly. We've also got information on how to enable the verbose logging for QuickBooks or for the web connector. So that's on one of the troubleshooting guides, and then also have another troubleshooting guide for cannot start QuickBooks. A lot of times this is running into, not so much lately, because everyone's starting to know how to do it, but setting the target for x86 only, because QuickBooks is a 32-bit program and not 64. It has to be set for x86. Otherwise, when the program runs, it doesn't know how to get to QuickBooks. The other option is make sure you uncheck the keep QuickBooks running in the general preferences. If it's checked, another instance could start up in QuickBooks. One of the features that they added about 3 years ago or so was the ability to run 2 different QuickBooks company files at the same time. And when they did that, it caused issues with the SDK because it can only talk to one. And even the second version is limited on what it can do in some places. So this keeps QuickBooks from starting up that extra instance by unchecking that. The next common question we get or something is, can QuickBooks or the SDK application run as a service? And it cannot. I shouldn't say it cannot. If you can get it to work, more power to you. The QuickBooks and the SDK need to be run in the context of a user, and so they also need to be run at the same user level. So if you're running a Visual Studio, usually Visual Studio is running as an administrator, and so it's going to, when you start the debug, that's going to actually elevate the permissions. So QuickBooks is running a normal user, the SDK is running or your program is running in elevated permissions, almost like they're in 2 different sandboxes. So you need to make sure that they're running at the same user. If you do debugging with Visual Studio, go ahead and start QuickBooks using the Run Administrator option. That'll bring both of them up to an administrator level and should be able to talk to each other. With the verbose logging, you can also look at your path and file names. That if you're trying to start some stuff in unattended mode, you can always look at what file is being sent in, and make sure that matches to what you think the files are. So those are the kind of general troubleshooting questions and tips that seem to come up and want to kind of point out.
Great. Again, if anybody has any questions, I do have the Q&A panel open. If you're watching it from the YouTube type of experience, it looks like we did get one here. Let me scroll down here. Looks like, oh, Stephanie from Cricket sent in a question here. Let me read this. She's having some problem with her laptop or getting into the live session. Let's see. Wanted to let people know that our Cricut IT Sync Manager is an option if folks need to access their right to QB data. We currently transition our Cricut subscribers to CISM from Intuit Sync Manager. Let me see. Stephanie, let me try and paste a link into the, let's see here if I can.
So yeah, so what Stephanie's actually talking about is the Sync Manager, which is used for the QuickBooks Desktop APIs. They're currently going to be decommissioned on February 28th. So as of March 1st, those will be going away. And so that's looking at a replacement for Sync Manager is what she's talking about there to access QuickBooks data.
Yeah, I don't know if she's like. Let me send her an email and give her the link to actually join. Like, I think there's a chance Stephanie might be telling us that what she's built, her Sync Manager, that maybe other developers could have the option to use it. Is that how you're reading that?
Exactly. That's the way I'm reading it, and it's I think very similar to our same concept or whatever that the QuickBooks Web Connector would be doing.
Got it. So if you don't want to use Web Connector or you don't want to build your own, it looks like Stephanie might have a version people might be able to adopt or utilize. Let me paste this link in for her and see if she can get in. Control C. Try to email her the URL. Stephanie, I'm emailing you the URL.
So that was kind of all I had, in my quick 30 minutes or so this morning of, oh man, I've got a meeting. Of course, David told me about this, 3 or 4 months ago, and we kept putting.
You have a meeting right now?
No, about this meeting. Going, oh yeah, I need to make notes for it. So.
Oh, gotcha.
30 minutes before I threw stuff together. So if I missed something, I apologize.
Yeah, it's hard to know like what people are going to ask or need help with. Hey, David, I don't think I've seen you hang out in the Hangout in a long time. You have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. It's just been a minute, and I have had some time to jump on today, so I wanted to do so.
Cool. Are you doing stuff with Desktop SDK?
Maybe. Not currently right now.
Okay, got it.
I have a question, although it may be more suited to a support request.
Go ahead.
Depending on if you feel up for that now. We try and pull details of transactions out of the API. And there are some kind of transactions, specifically payroll ones, that don't seem to appear in any on any of the journal endpoints. And they also don't appear if we run a journal report as well. They appear in the UI, but for some reason they don't appear through the API. And we've been unable to work out why.
You're okay, for QBO or the desktop? Make sure I'm on the...
desktop this is.
That's a good question. I know that
I
at least
wasn't sure
payroll...
if there were any known issues or anything like that.
Well, I know that payroll in itself is very limited on what can be done with it. I wouldn't know of why they would be filtering journal entries though for the payroll information.
Well, because well, am I correct or not? Historically speaking, like you can't pull the paycheck details, right, with the SDK.
True, but it's a true journal entry. So one thing I just thought about is when you authorize the app, make sure that and this is another good tip, is make sure that when you authorize the app that it's set to allow for the Social Security number access and private information. Or if you need to, you go to the integrated apps and check that box.
Because what I'm thinking, William, is if you can't pull a paycheck detail with the SDK, and you run a journal entry report in QuickBooks Desktop, that journal entry report is essentially going to show you that paycheck detail. So I could see if you can't pull out with the SDK, I could see those transactions getting omitted through the SDK.
Yeah, that would sound similar to what we're experiencing with it.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's possible. I don't think I have a.
And I know I'm not an expert on the QuickBooks Desktop SDK, but I just know back from my payroll days, I always thought my understanding was always you can't get payroll data through the SDK. Like it's one of those, like it's just kind of always been locked down.
Oh, you're not going to let me go one more level deep, huh? So yeah, so at least I'm trying to pull it across, but it's the web or the Hangout's not letting me do it. It won't go 3 windows deep in an application. There's allow this application to access Social Security numbers, customer credit card information, and other personal data. But I would make sure that that's checked.
I'm pretty sure it is, but I will go back and double check that one.
And usually that's one thing that we'll see is, I mean, especially even in pulling employee data, you'll get a little bit of it or pieces of it, but once you enable that, you get a whole lot more.
Yeah.
But like David said, I don't know if it's going to do it or not. And I don't think this has any kind of payroll information in it, the sample file.
Yeah, I think Larry's Landscaping, I think, does have sample payroll in it, I think. I think it's 2 employees. I'm really pulling back, you know, showing my age and like trying to remember things from 6 or 7 years ago with QuickBooks Desktop. But
oh, that's good.
Yeah, so there are paychecks in the sample company.
Let's see.
Hey Jack, maybe you know. I mean, you have a lot of experience working with the Desktop SDK. Can you pull paycheck data out of QuickBooks?
No, you can't do anything like for payroll checks. It's not exposed. But I never heard of anything to do on a journal entry request or report. Because we do a lot of interfacing with payroll companies where we'll create a journal entry that has the payroll exclusions in it, or just check what the accounts in it, but they're not really payroll checks and so forth. They're just either just regular checks with those accounts or journal entries.
Exactly. If it was just a journal entry, it should be returned in the journal entry report. But I think it's because the payroll is not available to the SDK. That's why the paychecks themselves are not appearing on a journal entry report through the. Because you said, if that's correct, Matt.
David, your audio just went out on that one.
Oh no. What I was saying is, Matt, if I heard you correctly, the paychecks themselves are there when you run the journal entry report in the UI of QuickBooks Desktop, but they're not returned in the your API call. Got it.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, so
I think they're just not available. That's the problem.
It's just really strange because, as well as, I mean, obviously that'd be one thing if they just didn't come out through the transaction endpoint, but also when you run a report, they then don't come back. The lines are just missing from the report as well, and it's just really strange. It took us quite a while to get to the bottom of that one.
Yeah, a lot of this is a mindset, right? Like when we built Payroll, 15 years ago, maybe almost 20 years now, right? The decision was made not to have Payroll available to the SDK. And now, mentally as a company, like we want all the data to be available through an API call. So now it's 2016, even in our online product, we still don't have a QuickBooks Payroll API, right? Just those, when you build something closed, it takes a long time to get it opened up, and that's, you know, I think, in hindsight, from a maturity standpoint, mentally we are ready to open up payroll data. Unfortunately, the decisions in the past still continue to haunt us for a little while still. Now, I don't know if we'll ever open up the payroll data in QuickBooks Desktop, but I do see us having some sort of payroll APIs available eventually for our online products.
Okay.
Yeah, wish there was an easier answer. Oh, it looks like Stephanie was able to get in now, so she can clarify what she built and what's available.
Hey, Stephanie.
Hey,
Hey,
Stephanie, we can hear some background noise there. Okay, you're here.
yeah, I can't. I don't know where you guys went though. I'm having troubles. I'm traveling and I'm not on my usual machine.
We can hear you fine, so
Cool.
I think that's good. I think William and I were guessing, I don't know if you could hear us, but we were guessing that you're telling developers that they don't want to use Web Connector. You've built your own sync manager type thing, and you're maybe possibly willing to let other developers use it. But
Yes.
if William and I are wrong, please clarify.
Yes, and Jack helped with that too. So Jack was in on that. Yeah, and so what it is it's a sync manager that pulls data out of QBD, and it also will write data to QBD. And you know, right now we focused on the entities that I really needed for our Cricut subscribers, and we've now transitioned a number of our Cricut subscribers over to it. We're calling it Cricut Sync Manager, and we still have some more to go, but obviously we have to be done by the end of February. So it's customers, items, you know, price levels, units of measure, invoices, credit memos, sales orders, sales receipts, etc., that sort of thing. We read more than we write. We do write some data to QBD, but you know, this is a tool that it's portions of it are available through REST API. Other than that, it's really a series of calls. It's, you know, it's functions that you call. So it's a, you know, web service. So that's what that is, and I just wanted to let people know about that's an option. I don't know the web connector to know how that actually, you know, really works. With this, you don't need to use the QuickBooks SDK at all.
Interesting. Stephanie, is this something that you are like kind of giving out to the community, kind of open source, or something you're having to, if another developer maybe wants to look at this tool or use this tool, you're charging them for this tool? Like
that, you know, I haven't really figured all of that out yet. I was thinking it would generate revenue, but the open source idea is also interesting. I've invested a significant amount of time in this, and money too, because you know, I did hire Jack. Jack participated in this project. So, you know, so I'd like to try to recuperate some of that investment at some point.
Yeah, that's good to know. I mean, because obviously there are developers that are trying to migrate, right? And there's still always that question: do you use Web Connector? Do you build your own, right? Or can you possibly utilize somebody else's? So that's, I mean, I'll try and make sure you're part of that conversation now and let people know, hey, Steph at Cricut does have maybe possibly a tool. You know,
I
figure something out.
appreciate that. Yep, thanks. Good.
Cool, exciting. Anybody else have any questions? Also, if you're viewing as the YouTube, I do have the question and Q&A panel slid open. If you need to ask any questions, feel free there. Steph, I'm going to put you on mute again just because there's a little bit of background noise.
Okay, good.
And then just kind of hand it back off to William.
So yeah, I don't know if anything else. The one thing I was going to post, I'll add the chat. Where do I get back to chat? Chat, there we go. So if you do have questions, I posted the link in the chat window that you can either post to the live community, and that lets other developers possibly answer the questions. That way we can spread the load on who answers. And if you ever go to live community, feel free to answer something. It always helps getting other opinions and stuff like that rather than us. And then also on that same page is submitting support tickets.
So I'm going to share the URL for the forum and help on the actual showcase here. And William, is this a correct assumption to be made or to be said? Like, there's probably a higher ratio of people with QuickBooks Desktop expertise in the forum, the developer forum, than possibly there are on the support ticket side of the fence, just because of the ratio of
correct
how long the SDK's been out, how many more people have used the Desktop SDK externally than we have Intuit employees, that type of a assumption.
Yes, and that is a big thing. Is you for the most part, it's just myself answering all the questions for the SDK, QuickBooks, the desktop side of it. So definitely there are more people that know about it and can answer questions. So asking on the forums is a good good spot.
All right, I'm going to also share the actual, because desktop has its own forum, correct? Category or topic? Yeah, it does. I'm gonna put that in the showcase for everybody. There's actually a sub-forum on our Intuit community pages that are strictly for QuickBooks Desktop XML SDK. There we go. And chug. Show item. All right, so I've actually added that link now also, which is just the forum for the QuickBooks Desktop SDK. Cool.
Trying to think of any kind of other tips and tricks, and stand on one leg, raise the right hand.
How about foundation class versus XML? What are your feelings on that, or which is better or worse?
I think it depends on what you're familiar with. Myself, I'm not that familiar with the foundation class in general, but it works the same way. You've got the different fields and stuff like that each requires. The QBXML just, to me, is a little bit quicker and easier to work with because it's direct, and I can plug that into the SDK Test Plus 3 program to get information back. Using the foundation class, usually I've got to go through and try to read the code. A lot of times some of the code might get skipped if someone's trying to do something with it, and at that point it's better to go even to the logs to see what was built from the foundation class, because it might not be exactly what you expected. But both work. But as Jack, as you point out, though, the biggest issue with the foundation class is running into encoding issues with foreign characters.
We've got one more tip actually for working with large files. Working with iterators, which are the foundation class equivalent of paging, is definitely worth investigating.
Correct, and that's a good point to point out. Is large files using iterators, A lot of times, I'll suggest that looking through the log file in verbose mode, you'll be able to see when you make a request how long it took, the size of the file that's returned, and usually the number of records returned. In a lot of cases, people are saying that something just stops working or it crashes, whatever, and looking in the logs, it's because they're returning 1 meg, 10 meg file worth of data. And usually at that point I suggest adding iterators to their request to fix the problem. But that's a good point. I forgot about that one.
Yeah, we had one issue with the foundation class on QuickBooks Point of Sale a number of years ago, and it had to do with the encoding, but it was really bad because the encoding problem was on us receiving data, and it would just crash, and we had no way to recover it and even know where it was.
Right.
You recall that one, William? I think I worked with you on that.
Probably, you probably did, and exactly. And a lot of times, finding these foreign characters, because it does crash in the foundation class, is if you switch over to the using SDK test plus 3, you can at least go through and get the raw response data and try, in some cases, parse through it, or if you know at what point it crashed, you can go look for that particular record in the response to try to dig down which record to go fix, and a lot of cases that work too.
Cool. I think we're about the top of the hour, so I think we're going to wrap things up. William, thank you so much for coming in and just handling QuickBooks Desktop SDK stuff for the entire hour today. Jack, Matthew, Dave, thanks for popping in, asking questions, stuff. Thanks for jumping in also. Next week, again, like I said, we are going to talk about IAF files, kind of really why they're bad and there's a lot of risk involved versus using the SDKs or the APIs, because there's error checking, et cetera, that takes place when you use some of those tools. And I should be sharing, hopefully, it to everybody right now. Also, a week after that, hopefully we're going to do some sort of live on-location hangout, possibly at the University of Arizona in sponsorship of our Hack Arizona event. Until next week, talk to you guys later. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.